Crafty Gemini. I post weekly videos right here on YouTube, and in this video tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to make a simple little cord keeper using your Brother PE770 embroidery machine. Now, for those of you that don't know what a cord keeper is, here it is, in use. It's basically a little fabric wrap that has some type of a closure and is used to keep all our gadget cords neatly untangled and in one place, right? So it's basically a little strip of fabric. You can add a design to it or just leave it blank. For those of you that maybe want to make this and don't have an embroidery machine, just skip the embroidery part and you can continue to make one just so that it looks plain on one side and the other. That would be fine as well. This specific project is going to be geared toward the PE770 specifically, and the reason for that is that we don't have to download any files, embroidery files. We're only going to be using designs that come already built into the machine. So if you're a beginner, or maybe you still haven't taken your machine out of the box, I think this project will be the perfect one to get you started. And if you don't have an embroidery machine, but maybe you're in the market for one, make sure to open the description box below this video because I've included a link for you there on where you can get the exact same model that we'll be using in this video tutorial. Now let's go over the supplies we'll need to make this project and we'll get right to it. All right, let's talk supplies. First, you'll need the 5x7 hoop that comes with your machine. I'm using my cut it away stabilizer. Then for fabric, I cut a piece that's a little bit bigger on all sides than my hoop, so we get good coverage when we hoop it. Then I also like to use a temporary spray adhesive to stick the fabric to my cut it away stabilizer. Then aside from that, for the closure in this project, I'll be using a snap. So some type of a snap set. You can use Velcro or something else, but here's what we're going to be doing here. Make sure that you have two end caps, a male end and a female end, as well as the awl to poke the hole and the snap pliers. I'll include a link for all these supplies in the description box below in case you need to get them. Then we have our little handy thread snips. You will also need your basic rotary cutter or scissors and also some rulers so that you can cut, your fabric out and then trim it down to size once we're done embroidering it. So the first thing is to cut a piece of the cut it away stabilizer, a little bit bigger. You can see that we get minimal waste here. Then I put the fabric on top, make sure that I have enough coverage. Put some of that temporary spray adhesive, and I always spray the fabric and then smooth it out to the stabilizer. Now we're going to take the outer hoop, loosen it up some. This is the one that's going to be installed in this orientation in our machine. I'm going to layer in the fabric with the stabilizer and then press in the inner hoop, making sure that I get a nice, smooth, and even catch basically inside of that hoop. And then I flip it over and I tend to push that inner hoop a little bit further in just till I can feel a slight ridge coming out on all four corners. Next, we can turn on our PE770, and then I like to go ahead and install my pre-wound bobbins, and I buy them pre-wound. I find that it saves me time, and it's the perfect tension. I don't have to worry. I just put a new one in. Then we're going to follow the arrows and the guides. Make sure that you reference your user manual if you have never put in the bobbin in this machine before. I replaced the little cap on it, and now for the next step is to install the actual thread color that we're going to use on top, right, for the actual design. And then again, follow the instructions on your machine to thread it correctly. This machine has an automatic needle threader, which is super easy to use. You can see I'm just going to push this down and it's already threaded my needle. So that's ready to go. Now, if we have a look at the screen, it's kind of blinking between the brand name and then it says, please touch the display. So just touch the display there. And then it tells you that the carriage of the embroidery unit is going to move. So make sure that you have space all around your machine to allow it to move when you press this OK button. So you can use your finger just like this and you can see how the carriage on the machine moves. And then the next thing we're going to do is install the hoop into the machine itself. So these two openings here, there's like these screws on the side arm of the embroidery machine and they need to slide into place and clip in there correctly. So I put in one first, the one closest to me, then I push in here and the next one kind of just pops into place. Now before we start embroidering, I want to adjust one setting, and this is a touch screen on this machine. I'm using a stylus just so my fingers don't get in the way, but this is a stylus from one of my other machines. So I want you to click this little icon down here and it's going to bring you to this screen. Now if you hit the right arrow, you'll see at the top here mm, and that's for metric, and that is the default on this machine when you take it out of the box. If you hit the arrow, it can switch you to imperial, which will give you inch. So if you want to see your designs in inch measurements, then go ahead and change it to that. Now we're going to move on. Here we have some designs and different fonts and things. We're going to click right here to the frames. And now you can see 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10. These are telling you you have 10 different frame options. So I want you to go all the way to the last one. Frame number 10 is the one we're going to use. Select that. Then it's asking you to select the stitch that you want it to stitch out in the shape of that rectangular frame. So for this, I want you to go over to the next page, click the arrow, and choose number 9. So here is the default design. Now, at the bottom right here, we have a button that says Adjust. Click that. Now you see it changes to where it says Layout. So click that again. And now it's giving you the layout of how it's going to stitch out. And you see inch should be at the top if you changed it correctly, so that it's showing you the default dimensions in inches. So this is 3.5 inches by 1.5 inches. But I want to change that size because I'm going to show you how to make it for this design. So we hit size, so at the top size should be blacked out like that, and that means it's selected. These two icons here, the bottom one is to shrink the design, and the one on top is to make the design bigger. So 3.5 and 1.5. Notice what happens to those numbers when I click this. You see it increasing, the size is getting bigger and bigger, and I want you to keep hitting that button until you see it get to this size right here. 5.05 inches by 2.16. All right, so those are the dimensions that I've designed this little project to be. So once you have that, you're basically ready to start embroidering. When I put the presser foot down, it turned green, and that basically is the green light to go ahead. So all we need to do now is press this button, and the machine is going to start with the frame of our little cord keeper. And once your design is finished stitching out, and this is just the frame, okay, the screen will say finish sewing, so just click the OK button. That was one design, and we're done stitching it out. So now we're ready to move on to the next, which is going to be to embroider the design that goes inside of this frame. Now we can hit the back arrow to basically get out of this menu because we're done working with that project. Click OK, and keep going back. We're going to go to the main menu. Now we're going to click on the first icon here that has 70 different designs. You can see 1 out of 70, 2 out of 70. Now on the top left and right, you'll see these buttons that say -10 and +10. And this is basically just an easier way for you to move by tens because you have 70 designs. So instead of having to go one at a time, you can hit 10 and go up to 16, hit it again, 26. And we're looking for design number 38 on this machine. So once you find it, select it. And now we're on the screen. So here it's telling us 1 out of 3. It's telling you to load the thread, the first thread color out of the 3 colors that you'll need for this design. Hit the adjust button and then layout again, just as we did for the frame, because we are also going to change the dimensions on this one. So here are the default measurements, okay? We're going to click size at the top right. So now we have the 2 little icons that we can use to increase or decrease the size measurements of the finished design. So I want this to be a little bit bigger. So I want you to hit this icon and bump it up all the way till you get to this measurement that says 4.53 and 1.18. All right, and that's going to fit perfectly inside of the frame that we previously stitched out. Now the design going in the frame uses 3 different thread colors, and I'm not much of a rule follower, so I tend to put whatever color I feel like it at the moment. So feel free to swap out to any color that you'd like. Now if you look here, we have this red button. That means the presser foot is up. So put the presser foot down and you basically get a green light telling you to go ahead. When you press that, the machine's going to start stitching out the first leg of this design. Then the machine is going to stop to give you an opportunity to swap out for your next color thread. And at any time during stitching, feel free to press the green button to make the machine stop. You can trim away stray threads or little jump stitches and then just press it again to continue. And after the machine's done with the second color, it's going to stop to give you an opportunity to swap out to a third thread color. I currently don't feel like changing it out to another color, so we're just going to press the green button and have it stitch out the last component of this design with the same yellow thread. Now we're done with the embroidery machine, so click OK and you're done. You can remove your thread, and then we're going to take off the hoop from the machine. So at first I like to trim my thread from the top so I can remove the spool of thread from the machine, and then I lift the presser foot up and pull the remaining thread from the machine from down there at the presser foot. Now let's release the embroidery hoop from our machine. Next I like to take my little snips and trim any jump stitches that I see on the design. Now we can unhoop the project by pushing up the inner hoop to release the fabric and stabilizer. And then I'll grab my rotary cutter and some rulers so that we can trim this down to size, because the finishing off of this project requires your sewing machine and basic sewing supplies. So if we look at the most interior line, the straight line here of our frame, we're going to be using that to measure out. I want you to measure 3/4 of an inch out or to the right from that straight line. So I'm lining up the straight line that I just showed you, the interior edge of that frame, on the 3/4 inch mark. That's 1/4. Then we have 1/2 inch here, and right there's 3/4, and that's where it's lined up underneath my ruler. Make sure that it's running along all the different little hash marks on your ruler so it's nice and straight. Take your rotary cutter and cut. We're going to repeat the same thing to the other side. You see the distance from the line should be 3/4 of an inch from that straight line, not from the scalloped edge. Do the same thing to the other side, and then you're going to repeat that to the remaining two sides to basically cut out a rectangle from your fabric. Then you can take out the little rectangle that you've cut out, and this is going to be the front side, I would say, of your project. So now we need a corresponding piece of fabric by itself that matches the same size. So I'm actually, and this is why I cut it out of the center, is that I'm going to make the most out of this fabric and use one of the sides. If I would have cut all the way through, I would have lost the size that I need. So I'm going to place this pretty side of the embroidery design down onto pretty side of the fabric and trim around the edges just to cut out a rectangle piece the same as the front. Now we're going to place a couple of pins just to hold these two layers together and slightly round off the corners. If you feel safer using scissors, go ahead and do that. Try not to trim away too much. We're just going to give it a more rounded look. Now we're going to get something to mark with so we know where to start and finish. I like to start on one of the long straight sides, somewhere around here. Go all the way around and stop somewhere around here. So leave yourself about a 2.5 inch opening. We're going to use 1/4 inch seam allowance, and let's head over to the sewing machine to stitch this up. I recommend slowing down when you're taking those curves to make sure that you're still keeping that 1/4 inch seam allowance pretty consistent as you work your way around the entire piece. Now when you come to the other side, make sure you backstitch to secure that there. And now we can head over to the cutting table, and if you need to, feel free to trim away some of the excess around the corners so it flips out a little bit neater and flatter. Then we'll reach into our opening here and flip the entire thing right side out, using your fingers to push out all the corners. I also like to use my iron and ironing board to give it a nice press just to get everything to lie a little bit flatter for me. When you get to the opening, go ahead and use your pointer fingers to tuck in the raw edges of that seam allowance. If you give it a good press, that will also help it stay down. Now for that opening, you can top stitch with the machine all the way around to enclose that, or you can use some hand stitches. For this, I kind of like the scalloped edge as the final outer design, so I'm just going to go ahead and do some hand stitches. You can use a ladder stitch, invisible, or whip stitch. Any simple stitch that's just going to close this up will work fine for this project. And believe it or not, we are just to the end to install the closure. So grab your snap pliers kit and your little strap here fabric. You kind of want to audition it and fold it in to figure out which side you want to be exposed on the outside and which one you want to tuck in. Either way, it's going to look fine. So the next step is to see where we want to install the first part of it. So say we want it right here. We're going to poke a hole through all the layers with our awl. And then on the outside part, or where the design is, we want to install one of the caps. and poke it all the way through. I come to the other side and kind of squish the fabric and that stabilizer down around the little pin part of the end cap. And then we're going to install the male end. You'll need both. You'll need a male end and a female end. So first the male end, and this one is the one I like to install first because it's actually going to help me with the placement mark of where to install the next one. That way you make sure that they're lined up. So then use your pliers as the manufacturer's instructions explains and install that one side of your snap. Super easy. Now fold it up just like it's going to be once it's closed and used, right? And then I like to push it in here with my fingers, squish it down really hard just to kind of make a mark so that that male end of it makes an actual little indentation onto the fabric. And that's going to help you to decide or to see basically where exactly you need to poke that hole. So you see how there's a little indentation right there? It's a little off center, I think. So I'm going to poke it right here, but it's lined up right where I want it. Poke the hole with your awl, and then all you need to do is finish installing it. So this is what I like to do so you can visually see how it's going to close. This tells me the female end now needs to be installed on the side of the embroidery. So the end cap needs to go in from back here. Again, push the fabric and stabilizer down around the pin. Place the female end of the snap, and again, grab your pliers so you can finish installing this one. And that's it. Isn't that a cute and simple project? These would make great gifts, and I hope that you are now becoming a little more comfortable with using your Brother PE770 embroidery machine. All right, and that is it for our little cord keeper tutorial. I hope you enjoyed following along with me in this step-by-step instructional video. If you have the PE770 and it's still in the box, go ahead and take it out and give this project a try. I think once you walk through step by step with my tutorial, you'll feel a little bit more comfortable, and hopefully the idea is that you will try more machine embroidery projects all on your own. If you enjoyed this video tutorial, make sure to hit it with a thumbs up below, share it across the different social media sites, and go ahead and leave me a comment and let me know what types of projects you want to make with your embroidery machine. Thanks again for watching this video. Remember, there's a link in the description box below on where you can find the same machine I used in this video, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Level beginner type of embroidery machine, click the link. Now let's go over the supplies you'll need to get started, and now let's jump into the supplies that we need, and I think that will make you feel a little more comfortable about tackling instructional tutorial. If you have the geesh. And that's it for our little cord keeper